Hello and welcome to Kids Corner on Armstrong Channel 20. I'm Miss Krista and I'm so excited today to be at Poland Union Elementary School with Mrs. Wakama's and Mrs. Kuntz's third grade classes. Do you know a lot about other countries? Did you ever wonder where your great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents and great-great-great-grandparents came from, and maybe even your grandparents or mom and dad? People come from all over the world to America, and that's one of the greatest things about America. And we are going to celebrate one of those countries today. We are going to read a story from my book, Tales from Old Ireland by Malachy Doyle, and the story is called Ashin of Tir na Nog. And we're going to learn a little bit something about Irish culture back in the days where people didn't write down stories, but they would tell them around campsites or around the house. After that, because it is Irish, we are going to make our own Luck of the Irish treasure boxes. And the kids are going to use lots of fun things like gems that glisten in the sunlight like the Emerald Isle, and hearts that they can fashion to make look like clovers, and lots and lots and lots of Mod Podge. I hope that you love our book, hope that you love our craft, and if you would like Armstrong to come to your school, have a grown-up email us at channel 20, that's channel 20 at agoc.com. I think I hear our third graders now. Hi, Mrs. Wakama. Fairy tales. Who? Kind of. Well, I mean, now I know you hear fairy and you're thinking, oh, those are for girls. But fairy tales just mean they didn't really, you know, they're kind of made up, but kind of based on something. Who likes folk tales? Okay, so that's interesting. So who knows the difference between a folk tale and a fairy tale? Who knows? Okay, who knows what a folk tale is? It's a funny word. We have some American folk tales. What do you know?
I just had it. It was
It's a few different things. Just give me one.
They're kind of funny, kind of.
Oh yeah, they're funny. Yeah, sometimes they like parts of them aren't real, right? What else?
It's like a story that tells you a lesson.
It's a story that tells you a lesson, sure.
They get passed down.
They get passed down, excellent. What else? There's one thing, when folk tales were being told, there were a couple things that weren't too invented yet. So we couldn't tell them the way that you do now, like you couldn't go to a library and get one of these. Yeah.
Books.
Well, that's interesting. So books now, but the first folk tales were not written down till the 7th century, and monks would write them down. There was no printing press. So you wrote them by hand. Every time you wrote a book, you copied it by hand. Yeah, Gutenberg didn't invent the printing press, I think, until what, the 15th century? I'll have to look that up. So they did something else instead. What do you think they did? They couldn't read it in a book. What did they do? What do you think they did?
They told them.
They told them, exactly. Storytellers always told the story. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to read a book from Old Ireland. It's called Old Irish Folk Tales. But what's interesting about this book is I was reading through it, and a lot of the stories that you know today have kind of the same characteristics. Give me a fairy tale or a folk tale that you already know. Dig back into your memory of Disney DVDs that you have, because those are all based on fairy tales. What do you have?
I used to watch Cinderella when I was little.
Cinderella, one of the most popular fairy tales. Who knows the story of Cinderella? Come on, boys. You know the story of Cinderella. You have sisters or girl cousins. You know the story. Okay, so there's a princess, right? And nobody knows she's a princess, and then she marries the prince. Happily ever after. Okay, what else?
Princess and the Pea.
The Princess and the Pea. Good one. Who knows that story? She doesn't know she's a princess, and then she lays on the pea, and the pea bruises her, and that's how they know she's a princess. Yeah? Okay, cool. Okay, what about another one? Yeah?
Snow White.
Snow White, good one. I like that one because my last name is White, so we're like distant cousins. But so who knows the story of Snow White? You know, that her stepmother tries to kill her, she runs to the forest, and she lives with dwarfs, right? Yeah? Okay. Poison apple, fall asleep forever, prince wakes her up. Okay. So, We are going. What about you? What do you know?
Princess and the Frog.
The Princess and the Frog. Who knows the Princess and the Frog? So she kisses the frog, hoping to become a princess, and instead, what does she become? A frog. Yes. Okay. That's one of the newest one, right? That's a relatively new fairy tale. What about you?
Jack and the Beanstalk.
Jack and the Beanstalk. Well, we forgot one of the classics, didn't we? So Jack goes up the beanstalk because he's poor. He gets the giant stuff, and he throws the giant down, and the giant dies. And three of you collectively, do you know one? No? Yeah? Pardon?
The Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid. Excellent. So the Little Mermaid is one of the few that we've talked about. Where does that take place? In the ocean. Excellent. Why do you think that story takes place in the ocean? And don't say because she's a mermaid. I know she's a mermaid. Why? And it's some catchy tunes in that one, right? It's great. Yeah.
Nemo.
Nemo, another one that takes place in the ocean. What else takes place in water? Think of another fairy tale that takes place, has something to do with water. So we have Nemo. We have that other one, Mermaid. We have the Little Mermaid. What else? It's a hard question. I can't think of any others. That's why I'm asking you. What else do you think?
Atlantis.
Which one? Oh, Atlantis. Oh, we forgot about Atlantis, the magical world of Atlantis. FYI, friends, SpongeBob, not a fairy tale. I know, me too. The last episode is this Sunday. Okay, so why do you think the fairy tales that take place with water, think about the author that wrote those fairy tales. Where do you think that author might be from? You know, if you're writing about water, do you think you might, what do you think? He might live by the ocean, sure, so that's what he thinks of. Like if we were to write a fairy tale about Poland, Ohio, or a folk tale about Poland, Ohio, what is something unique about Poland? Yeah.
There's lots of old buildings.
Lots of old buildings, sure. Sure, what else?
There's lots of schools.
Lots of schools.
It was named after a country.
It was named after a country. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful, absolutely it is. Yeah.
Somebody, the person who discovered Poland, that's why it's named Poland.
Excellent, you're right. What else?
You can see deer, like this morning, we were driving to school and we saw 5 of them.
Did you, deer? You said, oh yeah, there's deer everywhere, huh, still? Yeah, what else?
One of the president's houses is here.
One of the president's houses is here. Excellent.
Land.
Yeah, lots of land. What else?
It's a very old town.
Very old town, you're right.
It used to be farmland.
It used to be farmland.
We have like a little statue of the people who discovered Poland.
Right in Peterson Park, right? Yep.
We have a lot of woods.
We have a lot of woods. How about the fact that the Underground Railroad went through here? Yes, the Underground Railroad. And the old antique shop was part of the Underground Railroad, and slaves would hide there on their way to freedom. You knew that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of things that you'd learn, a lot of history would go into your folktale, because when people told stories, guess what they told about? Things they knew. So things were made up, but they also took things they knew. So we are going to read this tale from Old Ireland. There is a holiday coming up that has something to do with Ireland. Who knows what it is? What is it?
Leprechaun Day.
It's Leprechaun Day. What's another name for Leprechaun Day? Yes, collectively, you three in the back.
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. Who knows who St. Patrick was? Who was St. Patrick? I'm sorry?
A saint.
He was a saint, sure. He's the patron saint of Ireland. He was born around 375 AD. So he was born, well, I can't do a whole lot of math in my head, but he was born a long time ago. So he actually was from Scotland. He was not from Ireland. He was from Scotland and lived most of his life in France. But he was known for coming back to Ireland and helping a lot of people there for about 40 years. He died sometime around March 17th. But nobody knows for sure. You know why? It was like 1700 years ago, so nobody really knows for sure. Yeah.
I got this book and it said a whole bunch of myths about stuff he did, like he scared all the snakes away from Ireland.
That he scared all the snakes back into the ocean because there are no snakes in Ireland, right? And what's the reason? Oh, it's surrounded by water. Hard to be a snake when you're surrounded by water. You can't go too far. You'd have to kind of stay put, or you would drown. Here's something else interesting about St. Patrick's Day. Do you know that the largest St. Patrick's Day parade does not take place in Ireland? It takes place in New York. Because the way that we celebrate St. Patrick's Day as Americans is very, very different than the way St. Patrick's Day is celebrated in Ireland. It's more revered in Ireland. There's some festivities, but it's kind of low-key. Here, does everyone celebrate St. Patrick's Day? Yeah. Whether you're Irish or not, you celebrate. So this book is called Sheen and Tir na Nog. And Tir na Nog is a place in Ireland, a mythical place. Finn McCall had only one son, and his name was Oisin. Like his father before him, Oisin grew to be a great warrior. But it was for his songs and stories that he was famous in Ireland, for none sang more sweetly nor played the harp more gracefully. The main reason, though, that Oisin will be remembered is because it was he, alone of all mortal men, who went to Tir na Nog, the land of eternal youth, and returned to tell the tale. If it's eternal youth, what does that mean? What does eternal youth mean?
Like unlimited.
You're right. Unlimited youth, right? Forever young. So he would never grow up. He would stay the same age and he would never die. One summer's day, Finn and Oisin were out hunting on the shores of a great lake. Suddenly, a beautiful maiden appeared before them, riding a snow-white horse. Her dress of silk was spangled with stars. Her hair was the color of gold, and on her head she wore the crown of a princess. As she drew near, the maiden spoke. "So I found you at last, Finn McCall," she said. "I've traveled the world to meet you." "What is your name, young woman?" asked Finn. "And where are you from?" "I am Niamh of the golden hair," replied the princess, "and I have come from Tir na Nog, where my father is king." "Welcome to Erin, Princess Niamh," said Finn. Why does he say welcome to Erin? Where is he? Ireland, very good. Erin is the Celtic word for Ireland. So if you ever hear someone named Erin, likely there's some Irish in them. "But why have you traveled all this way to find me?" "For the love of your son, Oisin," replied the maiden. "Much have I heard of his strength and his courage, and more have I heard of his stories and songs." Niamh turned to Oisin. "Will you not return with me? My land is fair above all others, and there we shall live forever young and happy." And Oisin, who had been silent all this time, said, "I will go with you, even to the ends of the earth. Niamh, for the moment I laid eyes on you, I almost died with love." Who can pick out the fairy tale in that? Can you pick it out? What is it?
I almost died of love.
Yes. So the minute he saw her, and isn't that the way many fairy tales happen? They decided that they were in love forever and going to get married. Oisin kissed his father on the cheek and said goodbye, but Finn wept. "I'm sad that you're leaving, my son," he said, "for we'll never meet again." Oisin tried to comfort him by promising to return, but Finn knew he wouldn't. The young man then mounted the fairy horse behind Niamh, and they rode off toward the sea. When they reached the shore, the horse neighed 3 times and leapt forward. The waves opened before them and closed behind them, and they rode so fast that they overtook the wind itself. The sky darkened. The wind grew stronger. The waves rose high around them. Thunder rolled and lightning flashed across the sky. But the white horse rode on through the storm until at last the sun was shining once more. And Oisin saw that they were nearing the shores of a fair country. Golden yellow was the sand, freshly green the grass, and tall, straight trees pointed up to the clear blue sky. There were hills and plains and flashing streams, and in the distance, Oisin could make out a palace set with jewels. "Where are we?" asked Oisin. "For I've never seen a land as wonderful as this." "This is Tir na Nog," Niamh replied, "and that's the palace of the king, my father. I know you'll be happy here, Oisin." As Niamh and Oisin climbed down from the fairy horse, a great crowd of people came toward them. Joyfully they were led to the palace where the king and queen were waiting. Oisin was filled with gladness, and he and the fair princess were wed. Fairy tale? Yeah. Afterward, there was a great feast, and although Oisin had seen many a feast in Erin, there had never been one like this. For 300 years, Oisin and Niamh lived happily in the palace of the City of Youth, though to Oisin it felt no more than 3. For a year seemed but a day in Tir na nog. They swam in warm lakes and they raced horses on the sand. If there was anything Oisín wished for, though, it appeared before him, and sweet music such as no mortal had ever heard wafted on the breeze. But with everything so beautiful and no one thing more lovely than the other, so everything was equal, Oisín felt no wish to sing or to play his harp. Sometimes he'd go hunting, and often he'd sigh when he thought of his father and his friends he left behind. But he didn't say anything to Niamh because he didn't want her to feel bad. Then one day he said, "Doesn't your father have any enemies I could fight? Or wrongs I could put right? I'm a warrior. I miss putting my sword to good use." So Niamh told him of a beautiful princess in another land, the land of virtue, which lay next to the land of youth. She had been captured by a fierce giant, and he wanted her to marry him, but she wouldn't. So she was waiting for a knight to come and release her, but no one in Tir na nog or the land of virtue was brave enough to do so. What happens when everything's perfect? What happens? Yeah, you kind of look for things to make better, right? What happens when you can't make things better, learn any more, or be any happier? Well, yeah, it could. Yeah, you start to realize that maybe it was okay the other way when there's kind of faults and wrongs and things like that. "I'll fight that giant and free the beautiful princess," cried Oisín. "Nothing would give me greater joy." So they rode out to the giant's castle and through the mountains, and the path became steeper and country said less fair. But when they came to the castle, it was dark and evil looking. The gates creaked open, and Niamh and Oisín passed through them. An ugly servant led them into a hall where they found the beautiful princess chained to the wall with 7 chains. "Don't worry," said Oisín. "Giants are no match for the Finna," which are his people. And with that, he went into the courtyard where Fómhair, dressed in heavy armor, was waiting for him. And the battle raged long and fierce. The giant thought for sure he would win, for he drove Oisín into a hard corner. But then Oisín thought of the poor princess chained to the wall. And with a yell, he dived between Fómhair's legs, spun around, and clattered him a mighty blow that drove his opponent senseless to the ground. The wounded giant was carried away, and one of the 7 chains that held the princess fell down. The next day, they fought again, and Oisín was again the victor. A second chain snapped and hung by the wall. So it went for 7 days. And at the end of that time, the last chain broke, and the princess was free. "Thank you," she cried, throwing her arms around Oisín. "You're the bravest man in the lands of youth and virtue, and I shall forever be in your debt." And with that, the princess went to her own people, and Oisín and Niamh rode back to the palace of the City of Youth. He was happy, and he wanted to celebrate as in the old days of Erin. He opened his mouth to sing, but there were no words. Felt wrong to sing in this land of beauty where all was happiness and no one was better than anybody else. He wanted to visit Erin and see Finn, his father, and the men of the Finna once more. So he told his wife, "I want to visit Erin. Please let me return. I promised my father that I would visit him one day, and I wish to sing to my people of the wonders of Tir na nog." A chill ran through Niamh's heart when she heard these words. And she tried to tell him to change his mind, but at last she could tell he was unhappy, and she agreed to let him go. She saddled the white horse with her own hands and brought it to him. "Go to Erin if you must," she said. "My horse will carry you safely over the sea and back again. But do not for a moment get down from the saddle, because if you set foot on Irish soil, even for an instant, you will never return to Tir na nog." Now it's been 300 years. Who do you think might be waiting for him?
His father.
Now it's been 300 years. Yeah. Yeah, it could be a person. Let's see. Things change in 300 years, right? Different languages, different people. So he kissed his wife goodbye and said he'd stay on the horse. And after he rode over the sea, he finally arrived. But when he reached Erin, it didn't look like anything he had left. The rivers were deeper and the hills were lower, and there were strange little cottages dotted all around. When he came to the hill of Tara, where Finn's castle once stood, all had changed. The hill rose up as before, but the castle was in ruins. Oisín was filled with sadness, for he doesn't know what happened to his land or his people. So he came to little men, and they were struggling with all their might to lift a huge flagstone. They got it half raised, but it was so great that the men were being crushed. "Help!" they cried when they saw the mighty Ashin riding near. He leaned over in his saddle, and taking the full weight of the flagstone in his hands, he raised it and flung it away, freeing the men beneath. But soon there were shouts of fear, for Ashin's efforts had been so great that the golden belt around his horse's stomach had snapped. He hit the ground. Neoph's warning screamed in his ears, but it was too late. The great white horse vanished as mist before the midday sun, and the men watched in horror as the tall young warrior's powerful body withered and shrank, and his skin sagged into wrinkles and folds. Instead of a handsome knight, they saw only a blind old man, bent with the weight of many hundreds of years, lying helpless at their feet. When he told them that he was Ashin, son of Finn, they laughed and said, "You must be mad, old man. Finn McCall is dead and gone these 300 years, and all his company with them. A holy man called Patrick has come to Ireland, though. Maybe you could talk to him." So they took him to St. Patrick, who listened to Ashin and treated him kindly, for he could see that the old man had not long to live in this world. Ashin told Patrick the tales of Finn and the Finna for the very last time, and the saint listened with wonder. He asked his monks to write them down so they might not be forgotten. They put them into a beautiful book with drawings on every page. And this final story was the tale of Ashin of Tir na Nog. Are Irish thought to be unfortunate people? Are they thought to be unlucky people? They're lucky people, right? They're considered the luck of the Irish. And that is what we are going to do for our craft today. It may look like a simple craft. So what is in front of you is a box. That is your treasure box. There is something special you're going to do with this box, though, and that is you are going to use something called a Mod Podge. I'm going to give you, most of you have a paintbrush in front of you. I have to give some of you the paintbrush still. My friend, will you pass those around? Yeah, everyone take one at that table and give them to the next table, because I didn't get them to everyone. Mod Podge can be used as a glue and as a glaze. So once you glue all of your stuff to it, you can run the paintbrush over that stuff and everything will come out shiny like glass. Okay? That's what's so cool about it. It stinks to the high heavens, I'm not gonna lie to you. But it makes really cool stuff, and Mr. Greg loves it because his mom used to use it all the time. So this one's for you, Mrs. Roten. So we are going to open this up. In front of you, you'll see a bunch of hearts. Do you know why they're hearts? Who knows why they're hearts? Why? Well, the eye, yeah, well, close, yes. If you put 3 hearts together, they look like a clover. So that's purposely why I made hearts. And we, of course, have lots and lots of gems because Ireland is known as the Emerald Isle, which means it's full of green. So that is what's in front of you. I also will have markers that I'll pass around. First and foremost, I'm going to give you your Mod Podge, and we can get started. Are you ready? One of my favorite items to use for any sort of crafting like this are these acrylic gems. And these were on sale for about $7.50. I could probably use crafts for about 150 kids with these. So these are really economical if you're crafting for a crowd, like if you're having a birthday party or something like that. I also invested in a hole punch. And these hole punches, you find these in the craft section or in the scrapbooking section, and I got this one 50% off. So it cost me maybe $3, and I got craft paper here. I cut it in half, and all I'm doing to make our hearts is, and just go straight through. I made about 1,500 of these today. But in the end, after you make them, you can put them together and make all different kinds of shapes. So look, you can have a butterfly, or as in today, what a lot of our friends are doing, a clover. And Mod Podge is so versatile because you can use it as a glue or you can use it as a lacquer. We're using it as both, so the kids are able to brush it right onto their boxes, put down any design that they want, brush over it. It's going to dry hard, so it's something that they're surely going to have forever, and it's going to be harder for the box to fall apart after that. So invest in some Mod Podge, maybe a couple paper cutters, and some gems, and you have an afternoon full of fun. Well, I had so much fun today at Poland Union Elementary School with Mrs. Wakamath and Mrs. Johnstone's third grade classes. And of course, Mrs. Johnstone's filling in for Mrs. Kuntz today. We hope she feels better. We learned all about Ireland. Did you know that words come and go? Did you know that words change? Did you know that things that surround you, your town or your house, affect the stories that you tell and the words that you use? And that's what we learned when we read Asheen of Tir na Nog and Tales from Old Ireland. And this was collected by Malachi Doyle. I hope that you loved our story and that you love our craft, our own pot of gold treasure boxes. And if you would like Armstrong to come to your school, have a grown-up email us at channel20, that's channel20 at agoc.com. This has been Miss Krista for Kids Corner. I hope you have a fantastic day.